What's up, everybody? I'm Broken Games HDR, and I had the privilege of participating in the Assassin's Creed Shadows remote hands-on preview. A few years ago, I was invited to preview Far Cry 6, and I pretty much shitted on the game because even though I like Far Cry, I felt like it was another generic Ubisoft game, so I was a bit surprised when they invited me back to preview Assassin's Creed Shadows. A few things to note before I give you my impressions. First, this is obviously not a final build, so even though the game releases in 2 months, what you're about to see is not completely representative of the final product. So expect some visual bugs, glitches, and pop-ins. Also, as I already mentioned, this is a remote play experience, and if I remember correctly, the servers were in both Montreal and North Carolina. I'm in New York, which is close to North Carolina, but regardless of server location, when playing remote, you will have to deal with some latency issues, audio and visual downgrades, and all the other drawbacks that come with it. With Ubisoft previews, this is the way it works. You play the game on your PC remotely, and Ubisoft records the gameplay locally on their end and sends it to you after your play session is complete. So the first time I actually get to see the game without the drawbacks of remote play is when they send us the file of our own gameplay. Even though we were limited to playing and recording at 1080p and other undisclosed graphical settings, I forgot to check the graphical settings that they had it on. I'm not sure if that was actually, if I was able to access that, but I completely forgot to even check. So even though we played at that, we were provided 4K B-roll footage of the same sections we played. So I got to see what the game would look like in 4K at higher graphical settings. So I got to play for about 4 hours, and it was split into 2 parts. The first part was the prologue, where we are introduced to both Naue and Yasuke. I got to learn about their origins, motivations, and what sets them on their individual journeys and how it leads to them crossing paths. The second part was more of a free play session where I got to explore Harima province and do a few missions. I asked my play session guide if there are any missions that were exclusive to and could only be played by either character, and he told me to his understanding there is not. It is possible that could have changed, but for now my understanding is that you have the freedom to choose whether you want to play with Naue or Yasuke at any point in any mission in the game. However, even though either character can complete any mission, there may be missions that are better suited for certain characters over others based on their archetype, skills, abilities. So I'm not going to bury the lead because I know what people want to know. Is the game good? I think the game is very good and I enjoyed it a lot. I had a couple of gripes which I will get into, but I believe both Assassin's Creed diehard purists and the casual fans will enjoy this game. If the entire game is like the sample size that I played and experienced, I think the consensus will be it's one of the better Assassin's Creed games to be released in the past few years. I think the feudal Japan setting is a long-awaited prime location. The game is beautiful. Both characters are truly interesting and well written so far, and the gameplay is enjoyable. I will delve deeper into both characters and gameplay, but I want to say up front, I did enjoy playing with Naue a lot more. There is nothing wrong with Yasuke at all, or his playstyle. But I play an Assassin's Creed game specifically for the challenges that come with stealth and to be an assassin. And Yasuke is a very well-designed character, and his purpose is to be the polar opposite of that. It's no different than in other games where you play as one character and the game gives you the option to either sneak past everyone or shoot everyone. The only difference here is that is manifested in 2 different characters. So it's all based on how you want to play. So Assassin's Creed Shadows is set in feudal Japan, 1579, during the Sengoku period, full of war and politics. The world is designed with dynamic seasons, weather, and destruction, and improvements have been made to the AI, parkour, and combat. Ubisoft's mission in Shadows was to take steps to give the player more autonomy for exploration. They want players to enjoy the game by discovering the world themselves, when you're tackling objectives, the game will not tell you exactly where to go, but rather provide hints in most situations. For example, you can send scouts to different points of the map to find targets and objectives. Just don't expect it to be on the level of Elden Ring freedom and exploration where they just put you in a world and say, figure it out. It's not that level. It's environmental hints and loosely guided gameplay. So what they're doing is just loosening the reins. Ubisoft has been notorious for having overly sized maps, saturated with icons, markers, and busy work. I did take a look at the map, and it is huge. But since this is essentially just a demo, I can't really say if they've toned down how much icons they put on the maps and all the activities, and if it's just completely encumbered with that stuff. But we should be realistic and understand that this still is an Assassin's Creed game and is still made by Ubisoft. So you should expect certain staples from the past to still be in this game. They are not abandoning who they are and what they've done in the past completely. So there will still be side missions, activities, and plenty of content to do besides the main story. They have shown off base building in the previous trailers, but I did not get a chance to try this out, which is completely okay with me since I hate building in games. I hate base building. The two characters, Naoe and Yasuke, represent two archetypes. Naoe is the stealthy assassin, and Yasuke is best described as a tank samurai. It's clear a lot of effort went to ensuring both characters had polar opposite playstyles, so it makes sense within the logic and laws of the world, story, and gameplay narrative. Quick tangent. I even appreciated the sound design. There was a part of the preview where I was walking through a castle with Yasuke, and you could hear his heavy footsteps hitting the wooden floor. I imagine if I played with Naoe at this part, her footsteps would have probably been a lot quieter. Now, in AC, there are usually two stories happening at once. The one inside the Animus, in this case, feudal Japan, and the one outside the Animus and the current timeline. I didn't get to learn much about what's going on outside the Animus, aside from a mention of something called the Animus ego, if I remember correctly, and implications of corruptions, lies, hacking. So there's still a lot of story to be unveiled there that I don't know much about. So since Assassin's Creed became like this quasi-RPG, features such as action and dialogue choices were introduced. I won't spoil them, but the few choices I encountered felt meaningful. The consequences they will yield and how impactful they will be in the story still remains to be seen, though. With these choices, it does seem like the development team implemented them at emotional points of contention, where the player would feel strongly to want to provide their own input in these situations. Assassin's Creed Shadows also introduces something called canon mode, where the game makes all the dialogue choices for you, probably based on what the developer believes and thinks to be true canon, for players who would prefer to play this like a classic Assassin's Creed game and not make any choices. Now let's talk about the combat and gameplay, and I'm going to start with Naoe. She is an assassin and your prototypical AC protagonist. She utilizes the environment and shadows to kill enemies undetected. You can scout and mark enemy locations before engaging. Then you can hide in bushes, boxes, and other designated hiding spaces to ambush enemies. You can even swing off your grapple hook and assassinate, enemies from there. If areas are too well lit, you can blow out candles and destroy lights to make it darker and decrease your visibility. There's an indicator that looks like an eye with a meter that shows how visible you are due to light sources or lack thereof. Some of the tools she has at her disposal are whistling or using a chime that she can throw to lure and distract enemies, smoke bombs to disorient and stun, and shuriken and kunai to hurt or kill. If you want to knock out enemies instead of killing them, boring, my opinion, and listen, I'm killing everybody, then you have that choice if you want to be a pacifist. In the preview, the weapons I had access to were her katana, tanto, and hidden blade, but the full game there are others you will get, such as the Husari Gama. Now let's talk about Yasuke. Yasuke is a samurai that fully utilizes his size and stature. He is a complete like brute force. He can literally kick enemies and send them flying like 10 feet, and he can cut through necks like butter. Yes, there is dismemberment. From my experience, it seems to mostly be limited to animations when you're finishing off an enemy, but it looks amazing. Some of his arsenal includes the Teppo musket rifle with different bullet types, the Kanabo, a bow and arrow, and the Naginata. While Naue may have to find alternate paths for closed doors, as an example, Yasuke can run directly through them and break them down. As I mentioned before, I prefer Naue, but Yasuke is fun to play. I'm happy he's an option, and if this was any other game not named Assassin's Creed, then he would be my go-to. If it is true that you can play through the game with any character you want, I may like do a full run with Naue and then replay certain parts with Yasuke. Also, both characters can build relationships with NPCs and actually summon them in combat to fight and kill enemies for you, which is pretty cool. Both Naue and Yasuke have their own unique abilities. For example, Naue has this ability where she can do a leg sweep and take an enemy to the ground, and then you can follow up with a ground strike. And Yasuke, as you've seen and as I've already mentioned, has the ability to kick an enemy very far. Of course, both can block, parry, and dodge. There are some unblockable moves, some moves that are better parried or better dodged. And Naue has the ability to crouch and also go in full prone. Just like in any other AC game or game of this magnitude, there will be fast travel, but you also have your mount if you want to just ride through the game and do some more exploring. Now, let's talk about some of my issues, right? So the biggest disappointment I believe I had was the English voice acting. I found the vocal performance to be pretty underwhelming and a little bit awkward. I'm not an expert in Japanese dialects or accents, but something just sounds off, specifically with Naue and a few other NPCs.
The young lord?
On his way back to the province of Bizen, the home of his father, Lord Okita Naoye, the same man behind the attack at the Rengakai.
He kidnapped his own son.
The attack at the Rengakai was aimed at me.
With Hideye caught in the middle.
He has stationed a private force at Himeji Castle, a backup plan for a meeting he never planned to attend.
This is a serious allegation. Though, you gain nothing from fabricating the truth.
You cannot meet Lord Naoya in Himeji. Call off the meeting and your guards.
That would tip our hand. We will lose the opportunity to strike.
Your safety is paramount, my lord.
No. My safety is a secondary. Stopping Ukita Naoye is more important. Whatever happens that night must stay within the walls of Himeji Castle.
Lord Kanbei, as long as he remains in Himeji Castle, Lord Naoye will have the upper hand.
One cannot parry a blade they do not expect to strike.
Lord Kanbei is right. We have the element of surprise. Lord Naoya's men will not see us coming. But to leave you alone with him...
No. I must find out what he thinks he stands to gain. And I must be willing to take what he fears to lose.
Lord Naoye has plenty to lose besides his son. If you bring Lord Hideye into this, then our deal is off.
I will talk to Ukita Naoye in terms he can understand and appreciate. Make our preparations.
The good thing is AC Shadows will have a Japanese dub. I did not get a chance to try this out, but I may use the Japanese voices and English subtitles if it sounds better. The other issue I had was sometimes I was having problems accurately traversing and parkouring across certain platforms. Sometimes it felt like the transitions were not the most responsive, I guess, but I think this was possibly largely due to the latency from remote play. And when you're actually trying to stay undetected, there's very little room for error. So if you move to the wrong platform or make the wrong, move here or there, that can get you caught. Another issue was the camera. I'm not certain what the FOV was at while I was playing, but usually I like to play at higher FOVs, but I'm not sure if that's going to be viable when I play the full game, because often when I engaged in combat, the camera would go behind an object and completely obscure my view. Lastly, I have a minor issue with the hand-to-hand combat in Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I have to bring up Ghost of Tsushima and a few other games as a comparison to properly depict what I'm trying to say. The hand-to-hand combat in Shadows is pretty good, but there is something about games like Ghost of Tsushima or Sekiro's combat that feels very precise and graceful. It almost feels like a ballet or a dance with like perfect choreography. There's no missteps. Whereas the combat in not only Assassin's Creed Shadows, but past Assassin's Creed games has like a certain element of clumsiness or clunkiness, almost as if the game wasn't originally designed for it, which makes sense, because you can make the argument it wasn't. Sometimes Assassin's Creed's combat feels like the situation in Dishonored, and I'm not directly comparing Assassin's Creed hand-to-hand combat to Dishonored, because obviously AC is much better in that category. But what I'm trying to say is, just like in Dishonored, the combat works, but it doesn't work as well as the stealth and assassination mechanics. Even though hand-to-hand combat has been in Assassin's Creed for a long time, the focus has always been stealth. So it makes sense that that's what it excels at. But I think if they can find a way to clean up the combat and remove that little bit of awkwardness, then it would be perfect. So I really enjoyed my time in Assassin's Creed Shadows. I can't wait for the game to come out. I appreciate Ubisoft giving me this opportunity to play it. I was very excited, and I look forward to the game based on the gameplay that has been shown already. And now playing this made me even more excited. It's one of my most anticipated games for this year. So those are my impressions for AC Shadows. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section and I will do my best to answer them. Like the video, follow me on Twitter, all that good stuff. And I will catch y'all on the next video. I have some extra gameplay, so I'm just gonna let that play for you, so enjoy.
God.
These were all shipped from Bizen, signed by Lord Yukinaga. Interesting. Why does Himeji Castle need temple supplies?
Something is going on.
A shrine that sits outside of Himeji. Marked on the map, but no mention of any shipments going there. I get a strange feeling from this place. I need to talk to Lord Yukinaga. I need to paint this. I see you. I need a closer look. I'll seize the moment. I need to be quiet. Don't move. You're too far away. Perfect spot. Perfect.
Lord Naoye and his men were here. I am too late.
Who's there?